Interesting, dude. That's so crazy. So when you first started doing this shit, you started having just like your friends come on, or did you like have an idea of the type of guest that you want to have, like Jim? Like you said, you knew Jim for years, right? Like did you kind of want to go down that kind of like crazy like American history deep state type rabbit hole?
My rule was simple. If I'm curious about it, let's do it.
Because you seem like you know a lot of shit. Like you seem like you know quite a bit about like politics, history, that kind of stuff.
I mean, this is my job. I don't do anything else, right? Like I sit here, I work on the podcast, and a part of my job is knowing what's going on a day.
Is that because of the podcast, or is that just like natural for you?
Some of it's natural, but it's also like, I'm in the studio, I'm working. Like, this is where I get my quick bites of what's going on. What's the big story that just happened? Oh, there's people talking about someone on Twitter. Let's see what that is. And I still miss most of it. So, like, a couple things there. Number one, it's very easy, and maybe you would notice this if you thought about it, like from your podcast. I'll bet it's probably pretty similar. It's very easy once you have some sort of expert in front of you on whatever it is. Could be a current event, or it could be like their life and what they did. It's very easy to start putting things together if they're opening up. And I've been lucky. I've had a lot of people. I mean, like Jim's a great example. We keep bringing him up, and your people will hear him soon. Like, that guy doesn't give a fuck. He'll just say, at this point, he's like, I'll tell you about this case. I'll tell you about that one. I'll tell you about that time I did that to this criminal. Like, he'll just go off. And so then maybe while he's talking, I can piece together things I remember of like, oh, what about this other thing this other person told me about one time?
Yeah.
And then
connect the dots.
I can sound like I know it, but really all I'm doing is I'm fishing. And then he might say, yeah, exactly. And then suddenly, like, now he's got another story. And I try to do that. Sometimes it doesn't work, but yeah, I try to stay like informed, but I don't know what I don't know, and that's a lot. I just like to have an idea. Like you and I were talking about psilocybin mushrooms before this.
Yeah.
I told you, I don't know much about them. I think I listened one time to like a Joe Rogan episode where he had on some guy, and it kind of went over my head. So like, I don't know if tomorrow I'd bring in psilocybin guy, but I might.
Right.
And I might just be like, all right, I don't know, fucking shit, man. Tell me what it is.
Yeah.
You know? And then would people give me credit for knowing about that? Maybe, but they shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like you kind of get credit for asking questions.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely give you some of those microdoses if you want some.
Yeah.
They're pretty fucking
I
awesome.
think I've been thinking, as I
They're
told you.
not hardcore.
I've been thinking about it for a few years because I'm like, that was one part of college I skipped. Like, I just watched all my buddies do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of wonder.
But there's not blue, but there's like people in like Silicon Valley that work at these tech companies and these creative think tank people that take those things every day when they go to work and just trying to be creative.
This is in your phone because of mushrooms. Or in your phone. This is in your hand. I'm holding up the phone.
Oh, yeah.
For people listening.
Yeah,
This is in your hand because of trips, right? That's what Steve Jobs did. And that definitely, I'm a huge Steve Jobs guy. And
Are you?
Yeah, that's one of the things
Was
that
he,
I'm like, I'm
was
curious.
I don't know a lot about the history of him. Was he big into magic mushrooms?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And does he say that that's what led him to create a lot of the products? Is through tripping?
He has,
or like having the visions.
He was quoted as, and I don't remember the exact quote, so I'm not going to give him. But he was quoted in the range of talking about how those experiences, especially like right after college, and I think during college, at one point he like lived out in the desert. I think in an RV for a month or some shit like that.
Yeah.
He went to India, did some wild shit over there. Those experiences when he was using creative substances, and I don't remember if it was like psilocybin. I got to go look at that again. But he was using some of this stuff. That is what gave him a lot of his creative vision on the world, and it allowed him to put things together. So like, it married his interests, his OCD, with his creativity. Right? So one of my favorite stories about him is his father, because he was adopted, so he genetically didn't have a lot in common with his dad. They were different people. But he was tight with his dad. And his dad was like I don't remember his exact job, but one of his skills was he was an unbelievable carpenter. He could just make incredible shit. And so when Steve was like maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, his dad made some cabinet or some armoire that goes against the wall. And when Steve thought he was finished, his dad pulled it back out and like shook his head and went and got the tools and started going to work on it again, on the back, like the part you don't see. And he's like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, it's perfect. You don't need to do it. And he goes, no, there's some sort of like indentation here or something like that. And Steve said to him, he said, Dad, that's on the back. No one's ever going to see that. And he said, no, you're going to know it's there though. And if you know it's there, that's a horrible pattern and it'll never be right. So that's why when you look at Apple, you know, one of the foundational things that Steve Jobs did turning them around was the iMacs, which he made, and it drove the engineers nuts because they don't think like this at all. But he and Johnny Ive made the engineers design the inside, like, well, they designed it, but he made them work within the designs that he came up with for what the inside looks like, including the parts that even after their transparent design happens, no one would ever see. So if you're like a tech guy and you take apart your Apple, it looks like a work of art inside. No one knows it, but it does because it translates to the rest of the product.
They did this even before they created that see-through plastic thing. Remember the round one with the round iMac
Yes,
see-through?
that's exactly what I'm talking about. And you could see some of it there. I don't think you could see all of it, but part of it was even before that model, I believe, because he came back to the company in '97. But part of doing the whole transparent design there was quite literally an example of transparency. Look at the work inside. Wow. This isn't like a fucking Windows tossed together job because no disrespect to engineers, they make the whole thing go. And that's important to remember. But generalizing here, engineers don't really think about design. They go look at Discord. Case in point, right? Like simplicity and engineers don't go together.
Yeah.
So you have to, the reason Apple was so great is because Steve married brilliance of engineering with, you know, the teams he put together because he wasn't an engineer himself, with the simplicity of the final user.
Right.
So when you went onto your iPod for the first time, he wanted nothing more than 2 clicks away.
Right.
And so that's how I think of it. Like that shit changed my life, thinking about that and reading the books about Johnny Ive and stuff and how these guys would look at stuff. Simplicity is the most important thing. And that was what I was saying about your documentaries too, your style. I noticed that right away when I was watching those for the first time. You're very like, it's easy to take in, and you're doing it where it feels like you're doing a lot, and you are because you're filming all this stuff.
Yeah.
But with the final product, it's actually right there in front of you. It doesn't try too hard. It's not zooming in every 2 seconds on somebody. It's not like trying to get some crazy shot left and right. It's like, nope, the drone goes right over the setting, kind of like they did in True Detective. Boom, boom, boom.
Dude, I love that fucking show. God damn.
I could tell. I could tell. You take it all in. Now you feel like you're there. I feel like I'm in Madeira Beach with all these. I was calling it deckhands. It's deckhands.
Deckhands, yeah.
Yeah, with all these deckhands, and then boom, we're right in front of Shane going, "Fuck yeah, man!" It's like, dude, you did all that, and the viewer, they don't know why they love that, but that's why they love it, because it's right there.